Alright, so welcome back. In today's video, we're going to be working on this Tyco Rock Island 060. So, before we do that, let's get it over to the track and see how it runs as of now. Alright, so I've got the 060 set up on the track, so before we work on it, here's how it runs. It's also at full power, by the way. It does move, but barely. I have run it a little bit, and as you can tell, it does take a bit of time. Still full power. So yeah, get back to the bench and we'll work on it. Alright, so let's get into the engine. So first of all, I can get this tender out of the way because we will not need that. I'll probably clean it off a little bit later, but there's nothing functional about it. I believe, since I've had one of these before, that it's just this one screw holding it in. But yes, I was gifted this engine by a member of the club I go to just a few days ago. They apparently had it for ages and just never used it. So all it did was sit. So wanted someone who would use it to have it. See if I can get this light out of the way first of all. Make my life easier. There we go. Now move that out of the way. I think first of all, I'm gonna get the motor block separated from the frame. Yeah, the guy who owned this before me had apparently owned it since new and just barely ever used it, judging by the wheels. He said maybe once or twice ever, and it just mostly sat, so it's basically brand new. It does have a little bit of stuff in it now from when I just sort of test ran it a little bit at the club and just then. Screw's pretty stuck on here. Yeah, if anyone wasn't aware, like I said before, this is the second one of these that I've owned. The first one's been a problem, so hopefully this one will be a nicer one to actually own. There we go. So we can get that out of the way. The wheels apart. Well, we've got these out now. Let's set this aside for a second. But before we go on, I would also like to say that I got this new parts tray for free recently. So I will be using that for a lot of projects, and it will be pretty useful. So just as a start, to get it out of the way, I'm going to clean off all these wheels first. I have also gotten a new container for Q-tips as well, which helps a little bit for storage. And I also got myself a little spare trash sort of bin, a tiny one that I can throw Q-tips and stuff in. And there is not very much, if any, dirt on these wheels. Okay, maybe I was wrong. There is a fair bit of dirt on this one. Might just be, I don't know, factory oil or something. Alright, so now these wheels are clean. I'm going to take a little bit of a break for a second, organize some stuff. I'm probably also going to wash off the tender in this break, just to get it nice and clean since there's some dust and stuff on it. So, I'll be back, and we'll work on this while the tender's drying. And I might also wash the shell while I'm at it. Alright, so now I've got the engine and tender drying, so I can start working more on this. So I'm going to get into the commutator first of all. That is the second screw out. Now I can pull this off. The springs look pretty good. For now, I'll just throw those in there. Throw these out of the way. Forgot to pull it out. Use my fiberglass pencil. Maybe just to start a little bit of rubbing alcohol. See if I can help get some of this off. That all came off a lot easier than I was expecting. Okay. Yeah, I thought this looked pretty dirty. It might just not have been used very much. Yeah, I feel like this is a pretty new looking engine, inside and out. Like, even on these edges here, it's still pretty shiny. And that was just from taking it apart, too. I don't think this was ran very much. So next up, I'll clean off these brushes a little bit. They also don't look very worn at all either. It's a little surprising to me. Sure, they've got a little bit of wear, but they're pretty good. Now, because this is a pain, I'm sort of going to put this back together off camera, just so I don't lose anything. So I will be back once I get this plate put back on. Alright, so I've got the plate back on, and I'm thinking this is going to turn out pretty well just because of how clean it was. Now I've got to get these gears out and clean off this motor block and the gears. We can get this one out, actually. Well, this one might actually be stuck in there, so I'm going to have to deal with that stuck in there, because the post looks like it has some sort of defect or something, which is weird to me. So I'm just going to start with this one gear, try and get as much of it as I can clean. These gears seem like the dirtiest part of the model for some reason. It isn't the greatest, but this will make it work. Because I don't really want to go and mess up any of this. Yeah, this probably hasn't been taken apart since I think there might be something wrong from the factory with it. And maybe I was wrong about this not being run very much, since it is fairly dirty down there. I do happen to like these little Tyco 060s though, so I am happy to have another. Alright, so I've got the block pretty much clean and the wheel bearings pretty much clean. I think that's the right term for them. I just, based on how clean they actually were, I really don't think this was run all that much. This might just be old oil on these gears, and that's about it. I'll get these cleaned off. It might be a little bit, though, before we can actually fully reassemble this, aside from this, because we've got to get the shell and tender to dry. Pretty sure all that's on these gears is just factory oil for the most part. Maybe a tiny bit of dirt from the few times they've been run. That one's pretty good. I can reuse this one Q-tip. This really doesn't seem that terrible to me. I'm going to need a different one. I've dealt with worse Tyco engines before. But yeah. I also, if anyone remembers, have a Rock Island crane set of which I can pull behind this at some point in the future. Because I don't actually have any other Rock Island engines anymore. So yeah. I would like to get some more, but it's nice to have at least one for the time being. I think those are the gears clean, so now I can get in and oil everything. Just a little chunk of grease. Some oil on that pivot. I'm gonna get some underneath this one just because it's issue there. Stick a little there. I think I can put these gears back in place. Put a little bit on the top of this gear. Should be more than enough. Slide this gear underneath here. Some 102 in this. Not an absurd amount, just a little bit. On that. Then I think next up I can work on getting these wheel sets in. Once I figure out how to orient this correctly, I think that's right. Put some oil on these bearings first too. Not much, just a tiny bit. And then I will also put some oil on all these gears. Now we gotta get this middle one. I know for this it doesn't really matter all that much, but I sort of want to line them up to an extent just to make it sort of like an actual steam engine, since they need to be lined up. A little bit more oil on that. I think right there that's good. Like, you know what? I'm going to figure out this wiring situation here off camera, since it's being a bit of an issue. And I'll come back and we'll test this engine, because all I've got to do is put this base on and get the shell back on. Alright, so I know I said I'd do this last part off camera, but I've got the shell. It's still a little bit damp from giving it a nice cleanup. So I'm going to put this last little bit together on camera. First off, we're going to have to get this, I'm gonna have to figure out if the weight goes in first. I believe this is supposed to be the top and this the bottom. Both of these need to go up in here. Just to run down it. Like so. To just get the weight in first. Actually, light, I remember from my other one now, the light goes in like this. The weight slides in over the light. The light gets shoved into place there. Smoke box door needs to go on. I just got to put it on there straight. I can do the smoke box door in a minute. We can put this big long screw back in. Once I get this screwed back in, we will have us an engine. Also the smoke box door back on. Go in a little bit more. The screw is much tighter than I remember. That should be good. Now, just gotta pop the smoke box door back on. Might have to find something to hold it on better in the future, But for testing it, this should work. So, got a whole engine. Let's take it over to the track, see how it runs now. Alright, I've got the engine set up on the track, so let's see how it runs. That is a lot better. Yeah, I am very happy with this result. So now I have a nice working 060 steamer. At some point I've got to get my other Tyco one working. For now, this will do. So, thanks for watching, and go check out another video.